My friends, if I can invite you to come in and take a seat, because people join now on the places where you stand. So we gather here today in this house of mourning, united by our shared grief and love for a remarkable man. This space is filled with emotions and memories, and as such, it becomes sacred. Sacred as we come together to offer support and compassion to those who mourn. In Jewish tradition, the Shiva is a time to honor the departed by surrounding their loved ones with care, understanding, and presence. It's a time to acknowledge the pain of loss and the emptiness it brings. But it's also time to celebrate the lives that we have shared and the legacies that continue. We as a community play a vital role in that in that healing process. Our presence here this evening is a testament to the bonds we share, the love that connects us, and the commitments we have to one another. We are here to listen, to comfort, and to provide strength in these difficult moments. Let us open our hearts and our minds, allowing ourselves to be fully present with this grieving family. May our words and actions bring comfort and peace, helping to ease the burden of sorrow. Together, we quite literally form a circle of support around them. A reminder that no one is alone in their grief. As we remember those who have passed, let us also reaffirm our dedication to each other, knowing that through love and community, we can find the strength to endure and to heal. May this time of reflection and remembrance bring us closer. And may we leave this gathering later this evening with a renewed sense of compassion, unity, and most of all, gratitude.
שלא ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ורק השמיים, תפילת הלב, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ורק השמיים, תפילת הלב. Oh Lord, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the breath of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
I want to acknowledge Michelle's strength in being able to stand up here and lead us in song, love, and it's a beautiful thing. We're going to hear a little later this evening from Tori as well, and I'll try my best not to sing with them. Everyone prefer that. I also want to acknowledge those of you who are brave enough to join us earlier today at the funeral. It was not warm. Melbourne's wind blew, and you couldn't help but be uncomfortable. Kind of fitting. So we stood graveside. We began our ceremony with a number of readings from tradition. And out of those readings, I lingered for a while on a poem that's familiar to many of you. It's a poem that's found in the High Holiday Machzor of the Reform movement, penned by my teacher, Rabbi Elvin Fine. It's called The Sacred Pilgrimage, and it tells of the journey of life. We chose to include it in our funeral ceremony because it captured so much of Sam's legacy. In the midst of the poem, we read from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom. The poem goes on, and many of you know it well, and I don't want to repeat it this evening, but I want to focus on that specific stanza because it seems so fittingly appropriate to honor a man who moved from childhood to maturity at an unfairly early age. A man who went from innocence to awareness the day Nazi Germany marched into the Sudetenland, and he and his family were forced to be pushed out. A man who went from ignorance to knowing, and in that knowing came to see what history teaches us was the very worst of humanity. And then, despite those experiences, despite all that he had lost, he somehow found a wisdom that seems to elude many of us. Life truly is a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. And Sam's life was a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. We're not going to be moving through the traditional Ma'ariv prayers, rather we're going to offer prayers and songs of the House of Mourning and allow this family to remember and share their thoughts about Sam. And so I want to invite Michelle back to offer the 23rd Psalm. If you're following along in our prayer booklet, we're on page 26.
Santa, Vashem and Roshi, Kosir, Kosir Ach, tu vachesed, irdefuni, kol yemei chayai, v'shavti bebeit Adonai.
To know Sam Langer, you just need to look at his family. As I said earlier today, you just need to look at the mention he raised, Dan and Simon, the beautiful souls he nurtured, and Debbie and Michelle, and the most remarkable, loyal, loving and supportive grandchildren who he inspired in Joel, Mitch, Adam, Shani, Tori, Jason, and Matt. Our rabbis taught that there are 3 crowns. The crowns of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty. But they emphasized, just as they taught that there are only 3 crowns, that the crown of a good name exceeds them all. In the book of Kohelet, we read that a good name is to be treasured above all things, above precious oil, wealth, health, and even life pass away, but a good name lives forever. It is in this view that the Talmud teaches that monuments need not be erected for the righteous, for their deeds are their memorials. They will be remembered and revered for the kindness they have shown and for the love they have given. They are shining examples of what it means to be a mensch. And Sam was just that, a shining example of what it means to be a mensch. Psalm 121. deep love, not just for the people of Israel, but for the state of Israel. He was so proud of what was being built. And he did as much as he can. We'll hear a little later, as we heard earlier today, to support that through his work with the UIA. I have no doubt, I never asked him, but I have no doubt he had the greatest respect for Hannah Senech, both in her poetry and in her deeds. He thought it fitting to offer her words. Yesh kochavim, there are stars above, offered in translation. There are stars above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we've loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. They guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember.
Shiviti Adonai, L'negdi Tamid, Kimimini Bal Elot.
The poet David Harkins teaches us that we can shed tears that he's gone, or we can smile because he lived. We can close our eyes and pray that he will come back, or we can open our eyes and see all that he has left. Our hearts can be empty because we can't see him anymore, or it can be full of the love that he shared. We can turn our back on tomorrow and live for yesterday, or we can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you could do what he would have wanted. Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. Another psalm, but a melody slightly different from some other authors. Olam Chesed Yibeneh. It's from Psalm 93. It's the third verse, I should say, of Psalm 89. And it tells us that the world should be built on kindness. It is certainly an idea or principle that Sam not only lived by, but inspired and know that he left behind.
Na 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 na. Olam chesed yibaneh. Na 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 na. I will build this world from love. Na 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 na. And you have filled this world from love. Na 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 na. And if we build this world from love, na 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 na. Then God will build this world from love. Na 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 na.
Many of you would know that in Jewish tradition, the act of burial begins first with soil from the land of Israel. Side of the packet it says the Mount of Olives, but there wouldn't be a mountain left if that was true. It is, of course, a metaphor that has been passed down from generations that accepts that we can't always be together in life, but hopes that we'll be able to be together in some way, in some other place, at some other time. This was certainly our aspiration as we laid Sam to rest alongside his beloved Gertie, under the most beautiful of eucalyptus trees, to the sounds of birds singing. But in addition to the soil from the land of Israel, recognize recognizing the whole person that he was. His grandchildren added a few things. A few things that they collected along the way that they knew that he loved. And they knew he couldn't take it with him. But you wanted him to have it. Soil, sand from Brighton Beach. Rock from Inverloch. I didn't see any timber from Gippsland, but we probably got over that. As well as some more of the beloved Israel. Some notes, some prayers, these simple things that showed how well you knew your grandfather and how much you miss him. The seven of you took on the responsibility, not at your father or mother's request, but at your desire, to be active participants in farewelling him. It's a profound honor. Those of you that carried him on his final journey, I said to you, quite directly, the task is not a heavy one, but it is weighty. You carried it with grace and with dignity, and with so much love. We don't do multiple funerals in Jewish tradition. We move from the loss of a loved one to funeral and to remembrance as fast as is practical. But sometimes it's worth lingering on things for a little longer than we otherwise would. And so I'd like to invite his sons to repeat their words from earlier today.
This is why I need to read quite as fast now, it's quite as cold here. Standing here today, we feel it's important to share with you Dad's life, which was a long life. Dad was born on the 26th of March 1928 in Krzanów, Poland, to Simon and Clara Langer. Clara, who was living in Gutlands, Czechoslovakia, travelled to Krzanów for the birth so she could be with her mother. 4 weeks later, they returned to Gutlands, where Dad attended grammar school from 1934 to 1939. In September 1939, they had to leave Gutlands for racial reasons, and Clara and Dad went to Prague. Dad's father, Simon, had been deported. They remained in Prague until 1941, where Dad recalled going to the gymnasium. At this time, Dad's family in Poland arranged for Clara and Dad to be smuggled across to be together. In December 1941, Dad was taken to a ghetto in Krzanów and separated from his mother. In February 1942, when the ghetto was liquidated, all the Jewish people were taken to a selection in the market square for the officers to decide who was fit to work and who would be sent for extermination. Dad stayed at his age of 16 in order that he would be sent to the work camp. In 1943, he was transferred to the forced labour camp in Eichstätt, then to the concentration camp Luftwaffen and Grossrosen, then to another concentration camp, Ellersbruck, near Nuremberg. On the 28th of April 1945, he was liberated by American troops on the way from Hersbruck to Dachau. After liberation, Dad found his mother again in June 1945, and they then lived together in Munich, where they intended to immigrate. Dad discovered that his father was another victim of the wartime concentration camps. In 1946, Clara and Dad moved to Kaufbeuren in Bavaria and began working together at the Gutlands jewellery industry, making bohemian artificial jewellery, the industry which Dad's father Simon had established in Gutlands, Czechoslovakia, before the war. At this time, he also attended vocational school. They established an importing-exporting business in Germany. Dad remained in Kaufbeuren until 1952. It was during this time when Dad met our mum Gertie, whose family were also involved in the jewellery manufacturing business. Dad's stepfather Benno and mother Clara arrived in Australia in early 1952 and purchased the Druin sawmill in Gippsland. After winding up the business in Germany, Dad came to Australia about 6 months later and lived in a room with a Polish family. This trip took 5 days, going from Munich to Lebanon, Tehran, India, New Guinea, Darwin, and on to Melbourne via Sydney. An opportunity arose to purchase some bushland in Druin, which they took up. The land was cleared, creating raw materials for the sawmills, with dairy farms being established on the land. They had cows for milking on these 2 farms, and we have fond memories from some years later visiting the farms, drinking fresh milk straight from the vats, and driving our grandfather's Jaguar at age 10 around the paddocks. Mum arrived in Australia in 1953. They were married in a registrar's office on 29th of December 1953 and under the pulpit by Rabbi Levi sometime later. They enjoyed a wonderful, loving marriage for over 64 years before Mum passed away in July 2018. In 1953, the Buck and Timber Company, a sawmill in East Gippsland, was purchased. Dad and Mum built a house on the mill and lived there until 1957. This began a life in the sawmilling industry, which carried on for over 40 years. On a visit to the sawmill many years later, we found this little timber shack, which was still standing, with no running water, electricity or sewage. Dad's mum, Clara, and stepfather, Benno, ran the sawmill in Druin, whilst Dad and Mum ran the sawmill in Buchan. On weekends, Dad and Mum would come to Melbourne and stayed with close friends in Whitford Streets and Kilda. This was a 6-hour trip on rough country roads. The next 5 to 8 years saw steady growth at the sawmills, which enabled Dad to purchase a property on Dandenong Road, Springvale, with a view to opening a retail wholesale outlet. This was achieved in 1962 with the opening of Kalala Timber and Hardware. Around 1960, Dad bought a house in Wallace Avenue, Toorak, and built a block of flats. This is where we lived for the first few years of our lives, in the ground floor apartment, with our grandparents in the apartment above. Numerous blocks of flats were built and sold around Melbourne, which enabled the purchase of supermarkets in the 1970s and several land subdivisions developed for housing in various suburbs. This was the start of another major part of the business, which was property development. At this time, the sawmill in Druin was closed and the sawmill in Erica, central Gippsland, was purchased. Around 1970, a sawmill in Deloraine, Tasmania was purchased to obtain product to be sold in Victoria. Having this sawmill led to many memorable family trips to Tasmania. An opportunity also arose to purchase a timber and hardware store in Geelong. This, together with the business in Springvale, grew to be one of the largest independent timber and hardware outlets in Melbourne and operated from the site in Springvale until the late 1990s.
We grew up as little kids with a half share in a humble fibro-cement holiday shack and a little fishing boat in Macrae, spending hours together on the beach and the water. This encouraged us, as Dad was always up for adventure and embraced all of our hobbies growing up. Mum and Dad always wanted us to experience holidays, but as a family meant everything to them. Holidays involved visiting relatives in Israel and Europe in keeping a small family connected. Dad always had a solid connection to Israel, which he passed on to us. As a director of United Israel Appeal, Dad and his fellow executives worked tirelessly organising and hosting huge fundraising campaigns, which often filled our home with large gatherings during many of our young years. Judaism and the love of Jewish customs and traditions was ever present throughout our lives. Dad and Mum made it possible for us to have Jewish education through our early school years and would ensure Shabbat dinners included prayers and candles, wine and colour. We would also get together as a family in synagogue on high holidays and some festivals. This provided a foundation for us to continue these Jewish values and tradition with our families as they grew. Dad was an amazing life coach to us. Most weekends and school holidays were spent loading trucks, doing stock takes and helping everywhere we could in business. This instilled an incredible work ethic and sense of responsibility in both of us at a very young age. It also gave us the foundation to just have some fun with big machines and cars for our children. Later in life, the family business, he brought his wealth of knowledge and experience to every board meeting and working through all the big decisions we made together. Dad's love for Mum was evident through their 64 years of marriage. Their personalities complemented and balanced each other, and they shared the forever lasting love as soul partners. Dad's relationship with Mish and Deb was so warm and welcoming. He loved them like his own daughters. Dad embraced them as part of our family.
A significant milestone for Dad was the births of his 7 grandchildren between 1999 and 2006. Family was everything, and many a day was filled with picking up any number of grandkids from school, as well as attending their sporting and musical events. Dad would connect in a way to make each of his grandchildren feel special at the centre of his world, with one-on-one outings and nurturing each of their interests. During Mum and Dad's retirement, Dad was the instigator and organiser of many holidays around Australia and the world, most of which were shared with lifelong friends and travel buddies, Ernie and Dorothy Finkelstein. Pre-travel involved spreadsheets with dates and times, and post-travel was taken up with producing bound photo books, recollecting the best times of the holiday. Birthdays brought out what became known as the Langer Art Studio, where Dad would create handmade birthday cards for every family member and for friends. Dad lived a long and fulfilled life and passed away peacefully in his own home with the 2 of us by his side. Everyone who knew Dad was touched by his gentle nature and described him as a true inspiration, kind, creative, intelligent, hardworking, and a true gentleman who was loved and respected. To us, Dad was everything. Like those of you that are seated tonight for the memorial today.
תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר רקיע מסעירים הנשמת, שואל בן שמחה וקהילה, שהלך לעולמו. בעל הרחמים יסתירהו, וסתיר כנפיו לעולמים. בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Samuel Langer, Shmuel ben Simcha the King, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound in the bond of everlasting life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, I invite you to be seated as we turn to some words from the grandchildren.
One of the greatest gifts pastime gave us grandchildren was our connection to family. He has been one of our biggest inspirations and role models, teaching us to see the meaningful things in life. When answering the phone, we were always met with the happiest of voices. Similarly, being met with the largest of smiles every time he saw us. Throughout our endeavours and vast range of hobbies, each one of us had our pastimes full interest and support. He jumped at every opportunity to take part in each and every one of our lives.
Our fondest memories of Grandpa highlight just how much love he had for us grandkids and his constant ways of showing this. Within our weeks at school, the afternoons when Grandpa would pick us up not only became something we look forward to, but the highlight of our week. Being the OG Uber driver, Grandpa's center console was fully stocked with minties and his CD collection on point, often presenting us with our favorite movie soundtracks to sing along to. We'd find his blue lunchbox on the back seat, pre-made with all of our favorite snacks, a clear show of his constant thoughtfulness and generosity.
When it came to birthdays, Pastime spent hours at home, personalising cards he'd create on Hallmark, showing great attention to the small things we cared most about. His messages were filled with love and support, surrounded by photos he had handpicked to be most fitting for each year's card.
Shabbat dinners, followed by sleepovers, were a cherished regular occurrence. Us kids had learned that a yes from Grandma and Grandpa made it far more likely to then get a yes from our parents. Perhaps this was the start of us learning to negotiate. It became almost weekly that us cousins would be spending Friday nights in our room in Manor Street, looking forward to what had become tradition: fruit before fried collar for breakfast and Saturday morning. After staying up late with Grandma, Attenborough, and Andre Rieu, our mornings were followed with us swimming laps alongside Grandpa. School holidays were filled with outings to the museum, science works, and the cinema, while other treasured moments were had at the beach or on family holidays. Other ways Grandpa would show up for us was through cheering us on at sports carnivals and events, such as school assemblies and music performances. Really, all the above can be summarised by the fact that Grandpa made sure to be there for us through everything.
In each and every one of us grandchildren, we are walking forward in our lives, embodying Grandpa's strongest values and most adored traits. A true appreciation and understanding of what it means to be Jewish and how this flows into the importance of family. The profound impact of being gentle while pragmatic and the power of acting through your heart. The love we have in our family, what binds us all together, is something that Grandpa planted within us all. All of us grandchildren will continue to walk through our lives, carrying on the legacy of love Grandpa created.
Sam's decline over the last year meant that I never quite got an opportunity to come and see the Shtiebel. Go as far as the driveway. There's so much of what we do which honors people like him, not just of his generation, but of his character. As you heard his children and grandchildren say, he never let the horrors of his childhood define him or influence the way in which he treated others. When we first walked into this space and thought about how it was that we were going to do Judaism for the present and for the future, we encountered something from our liturgical past that didn't sit comfortably with Tammy or myself. Many of you would know that almost all traditional prayer services conclude with the Aleinu. The Aleinu roughly translates as the adoration. But if we were in kindergarten, we would translate it as kind of like, I'm better than you, nan. It was written at a time in Jewish history where our ancestors didn't feel like they were better than their neighbors. They just wished that maybe they could be at least equal to their neighbors. And they wrote something aspirational, which to the modern ear sounds so remarkably particular that it's almost uncomfortable. For not all of us know its liturgical or historical context. So we chose to respectfully put the Aleinu down. Leave it to the past or to other shuls, other traditions. Instead, we chose to use the words of a child to close all of our prayer gatherings. On page 31. In spite of everything, by Anne Frank, as found in the Krut Shabbat. It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all of my ideals, because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out. Yet I keep them. I keep them because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. I simply can't build my hopes on a foundation of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the approaching thunder. I can feel the suffering of millions, and yet if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come up right one of these days. That this cruelty will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must hold on to my ideals, for perhaps the day will come, Bayom Hahu, when I will be able to carry them out. Perhaps the day will come, Bayom Hahu, when we will be able to carry them out. Close this evening with the words of Kadisha Tom, the Mourner's Kaddish. Kedal.
ועלמא תברח ורוצה וימליך מלכותה, וחייכם ויומכם וחייכם בית ישראל, והגדל בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם אמן ואמן. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי קדושה בריחו. מעילה מכל ימלכה שירתה. ושלחתה ונחמתה. ואמירן ואמרת ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה שמיה וחיים. עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרמיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
May the one who causes peace to reign in the heavens above bring peace to us, peace to all humanity, but particularly this day, bring peace and blessing to the memory of Sam Leonard, to his children, and his grandchildren, I wish you a long life, as long and as full as that which he was blessed to have. I hope that you continue to be comforted by all these people that have gathered here and those that want to be here alongside them, just like our ancestors were comforted in the gates of the city of Jerusalem. And I look forward, and I know it will come, to a time when we can gather together again at a simcha. I want to thank you all for your presence. You understand the pragmatism of these people. They are not going to the door and are going to line up so that you have to leave. They will see you, and they will need to see you and hear from you over the next days, weeks, months, years. And they're so incredibly grateful for your presence here this evening.